healing and raising your vibes with shadow work or dark night of the soul, however you want to spell it. Shadow work. Shadow work is the dark parts of us that come out to the surface when wounded or hurt by a trigger sometimes, which then the darker parts of our defense mechanism appear when we act on it, such as vengeance, revenge, jealousy, envy, etc. Much more than this. Another way to know when it's a shadow is, what is the emotion? Is it something people have made to feel ashamed of? Embarrassed to express a dark-like emotion? We have learned and been taught to suppress our dark emotions and to become cheery and light only. But as you can tell, the world has been waking up and is not so light and cheery as it once was, which can be good or bad, even neutral, it depends. When we go in tapping into for ourselves, or when guided, the emotion energy surfaces to work on shifting the energies in the vision or memory energy emotion with one of your clear senses, using the emotions when working on your shadow work. By filling light in the dark visions or memory of the painful emotions, filling in the light means healing and working on ascending the energies of the shadow self, while working on the vision or memory, etc. of the shadow, so the next time this shadow appears again for another scenario. Sometimes it can get easier, or if re-triggered, can mean there is still some hidden shadow to fill the light in. In time, it does get lighter and easier to handle if you choose to do the work and find ways to become more ascended. But also please be mindful to not overdo and unbalance the work, which then can attract the opposite of what we just worked so hard for, which is the law of attraction. The reason I keep saying emotion energy or vice versa is because it is stored in energy form and is energy healing work, but in a practical way to release the energies and to fill light in the energies by cleansing, transmuting, and purifying the energies without having to go in depth of energy healing techniques. That in a way it is being done for us. But to add extra layers, you can do energy healing, which will amplify and heal at a greater level of ascension. Underneath these sections for shadow work and the dark night of the soul will be how to do the work. Dark night of the soul. Dark night of the soul, what is it? One of the ways to know is when we are being guided. Does it feel like lingering utter hopelessness, or our faith can be shaken, which is working towards ascension? This is the dark scenario that needs light filled in. But this can last a long time, like weeks worth or months, can even be longer. Depends on how much work we put into it and other factors. This is also one way to know the difference between a quick shadow work or lingering longer work emotions, such as the dark night of the soul. Written underneath, I did copy-paste some of that wiki. To read all of it, if you desire, that is clickable, or you can highlight the link and copy and paste it into your web browser. Some links are clickable, some are to highlight. Depends. The below written are these 2 paragraphs. From above website, clickable link is where it came from. Wiki. The dark night of the soul is a stage of final and complete purification and is marked by confusion, helplessness, stagnation of the will, and a sense of the withdrawal of the universe or your creator or God's presence. It is the period of final unselfing and the surrender to the hidden purposes of the divine will. The final stage is union with the object of love, the one reality, God. Here the self has been permanently established on a transcendental level and liberated for a new purpose. This is a form of ascension because we are digging into the depths of our soul and are working out human being encounters or situations, etc., to enlighten the dark night of the soul path to a more spiritually enlightened soul path, pertaining to what might have been a learning lesson that sort of hindered until it was picked up on and working or worked on. Big time awareness before doing any of this work, regardless if your guides are guiding you to. The reason I put that in caps is because it is sort of a disclaimer and awareness to be aware of before even doing this type of work. I would highly suggest finishing this course before coming back here to do the work. Your false high vibe guide, which is a fallen archangel known also as the devil entities, will be here to feed off of the energy you're shedding from this. But you don't need it to interfere mentally, which it will, and will influence others around you to add more fuel to the fire. This is why people get out of spirituality and either turn back to Christianity or to it, because they were not taught how to properly remove these obstacles off our soul path and all the other steps to be successful with this. This course is teaching you that when you start before cleansing your soul path, you will unfortunately find out the hard way like I did and many others, and will want to run and hide. But it won't stop, it will keep enhancing and getting worse. So please don't take this warning awareness lightly, loves. This is serious. Underneath, I do teach how to do this. I would recommend coming back after you have taken this course. Did removals on yourself and your property and other cleansing methods before jumping into this? And make sure you are learning to connect with your true angelic guides. You will know you will be guided, and you will clearly know when you are and or not. If you are still questioning, can mean you still have more work to do until you are there. But keep going because you will get there. 3. How to do shadow work. Examples. In this example, Sue is still in 3D living with her ego and does not know what shadow work is. To clarify myself and every human is this, unless we do the works. No one is perfect, we will always be working on this. I needed to be sure I was understood and not being egotistical or uncaring or unaware. I still remember when hearing things like this triggered my ego, like how dare you say things like this? Who do you think you are? LOL. Starting with this example with Sue being in 3D, living with her ego, and does not know what shadow work is. Sue has encountered a situation that has triggered her jealousy shadow emotion, and Sue wants to retaliate by doing something she shouldn't be doing. Sue is unaware at the moment of what is going on. That emotion came up as shadow work. This is our normal human reaction in a 3D ego world. She will retaliate by doing something. So what is happening? Is Sue having a shadow emotion come up to work on? Since she is unaware, she is going to respond accordingly to human emotions, with no awareness of shadow work. So she retaliates, but goes on about her day. Then a week later, she thinks karma or dharma has caught up to her and expects it as such to be going bad. Well, what happened is, it is not karma or dharma, but is another lesson in shadow work. In this scenario, by making another example happen again, Sue rinses and repeats. The point of this happening over and over is to get Sue attention to learn shadow work. This is an example of Sue aware of shadow work and is working on ascension, living more spiritually enlightened. Now Sue has dug into the cause because her hunch of karma dharma seemed off, so she dug deeper and found shadow work. So now Sue is aware that when her jealous emotions are triggered and it comes up, it means there is something inside going on that needs energy healing, or if she is not metaphysical, then maybe more practical. For her, it will then be doing like guidance counselor work. This example will be more metaphysical energy healing shadow work. She will identify the trigger, which is a jealous shadow emotion. She will dig into the cause by allowing her guides to help guide her to the answers. Some might use a pendulum for the answers. Sue will determine what the cause is. Her first trigger of this emotion was as a kid. She wanted this specific doll. Then the next day she goes to school at show and tell, and she sees the doll and is upset because she wanted that type of doll. So she is learning and processing jealous emotions. The energy of it is stored either in the mind or somewhere in the body. More examples happen after that, and it just keeps piling up, and the lashing out gets worse each time. Now Sue is older and recognizes it stemmed from childhood. And what example too? And so now she can work on releasing that energy and acknowledging each time it happens after. How she can fill the light in with compassion and understanding, that her little self didn't understand how to process or any awareness of shadow work. It was taught that to suppress that emotion and smile as if nothing is wrong, if not ended up in results of spankings, until she smiled to learn that lesson. Might not be this way nowadays, but for many of us it was. Some older generations' treatments were worse than this. I needed to mention this because some might say dramatic much. Nope, this was the reality for many. So now on, since she discovered shadow work and has been working on it, she is able to handle each new encounter just a little easier than the previous one, because the more felt and seen with compassion and understanding in the situation, versus before it was acted out on emotions. So viewing and handling shadow work with compassion and understanding is part of the key to heal shadow work. She was reminded she was a kid and what she went through with that example. Now she can look back and say, wow, that was harsh discipline. If looked at with compassion, would have been taught instead of with no patience. It would have been more explained why she couldn't get that doll. What positive reinforcement that could have been to help explain it further. So no shock from the trauma of being forced to emotions she is not able to properly understand or comprehend and not able to process at that young age. Keep in mind on the flip side, though, there are still important lessons that were taught, as harsh as that was. The value lesson in that is that it helps to teach to be stronger, but when older would have to break that down in a more positive light than what was taught, but it still helps with learning to be stronger. How to do the dark night of the soul work. This is not an easy one to explain because everyone goes through there for their way. So it is not like it is like with shadow work. This is a lingering, in most cases, lost soul feeling, etc., that it's not like, okay, identify and here are the steps to work on it. It's mostly identify and go along the ride and work with your guides. During this time, it is hard to find comfort. Some people like to be distracted by watching shows or movies, or get creative not in an excited way either, but doing something they love even while feeling empty inside. Because sometimes distraction is needed for sanity. I do not want to go through this ever again, but it can happen anytime. It's great that it is a deep soul enhancement, but while having a human experience and this is going on can literally drive someone mad, there is no relief or comfort. But in due time, the light comes back and so does ease.